Hello, welcome to today's episode of the UKRunChat podcast. Today I'm chatting to Andrea, one of our community members who has set herself the challenge of running through the alphabet. Hi Andrea, welcome. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I'm Andrea. I've completed over 50 races now, I'd say, both on the road and the trails, some internationally, and often known for sharing the stories of those adventures and often inspiring others along the way who are passionate about, say, travelling and making the most of being outside. So combining the two with some running.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on. So you've got quite a big challenge that you're undertaking at the moment, haven't you? And we'll get onto that in a little bit. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and when you actually started running? How did that come about?
Well, I was quite a late starter to running, really, in about 2016, primarily because I always associated fitness really with about going to the gym, just around the gym type of equipment. And I used to have a really big dog that would often disappear into the woods near home. And she would be known for following pretty much squirrels for miles and miles into the depth of the woods, which would often result in me heading deeper into the canopy of the trees to get her back. And one day, I pretty much decided to wear my old gym trainers and attempt to run some of the trail paths with the dog. It was a bit of a disaster. Either the dog thought it was a game and constantly got in the way, jumped up, or about 20 seconds, I was absolutely exhausted. I didn't really have any concept about running, and I thought it would be like walking, really, only quicker.
Yeah.
So after a few sort of failed attempts to run on the trails with this sort of overexcited dog, I decided to join my local C25K, which is well known for being a really great place to start for any runner, really. You know, usually free. It's a program offered by many local running clubs, and it provides, I think, quite a great deal of learning on how to run effectively.
Yeah.
Um, and when I first went along to that, my first few meetups were pretty simple, but I thought they were very necessary. I was made aware, for example, of how to breathe when running.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Yeah.
Nothing was a waste of time, I thought, and everything added some value in some way. And I found that sort of, that revolutionary idea of experimenting little by little, which became quite rewarding. It was sort of the ultimate principle of the law of effect in the theory of learning, I guess. So, you learn a little bit and you think, wow, I can do that, and
Yeah.
build it from there. So that's pretty much how I started.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. So you mentioned you've done 50 races then. So how long ago was this? Was this a while ago then?
Well, it was pretty much from 2016 when I first started, and then I decided to enrol myself in a race, which was a Santa Run, which was fancy dress in Bristol, and that was just a 5K. So yeah, it started pretty much with 5Ks, 10Ks, and then I moved on to half marathons and trail races, both in the UK and internationally. And my 50th race that I completed was the Rocky Mountains in Canada, which was really amazing. That was about 4,500 meters above sea level, which, bearing in mind the highest point in the UK in Ben Nevis is about 1,300 meters above sea level. So
Yeah.
it was quite a difference to how you approach things from a sort of breathing capacity, and learning a bit more about how the effect of breathing and running and yeah, your stamina, I guess, when you're putting it into training practice.
Yeah, that must have felt quite tough actually running at that altitude.
Yeah, I wasn't, to be honest, I hadn't really considered it until quite later on. And it was actually, I was very, very lucky to be able to have gone, because the world was just waking up after national lockdown, and the plan had already had to change slightly because the borders hadn't opened in Canada. And if it had all been normal, shall we say, there was a friend of mine at a university was offering to use one of these breathing apparatus that you can practice on a treadmill to
Yeah.
sort of have that experience of running at altitude. But I never got round to using that, so I was straight in the deep end, really. But it was definitely, it felt different. I think the
Yeah.
first 24 hours you can pretty much go with it, and just, you don't tend to notice the difference. But once you're into sort of days 2 and 3 of change of climate and altitude, you really do notice the difference on your lungs.
Yeah. Yeah, and that must have had an impact on your race as well, really.
Yeah, I
Did
mean,
it impact your kind of finishing times and the effort?
yeah, I mean, like anyone, you enter a race, and I tend to think when just as you enter a race, I just want to get through it and finish it.
Yeah,
And then when you get towards the finish line, okay, no, I'm going to go for it. But in a race at that altitude, I noticed in the first 2 or 3 miles, I'm not getting the same mileage and times that I would normally get back home. So
yeah,
yeah, you notice it, but part of it wasn't really just about how fast am I going to go. It was about just achieving it. The scenery was magical. So yeah, I noticed the difference, but I tried to park that a little bit and just enjoy the journey really.
yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, that leads us on nicely, doesn't it, to your running through the alphabet challenge? And so, just explain a little bit about the concept of it. Where did the idea come from?
Well, funnily enough, there's a really good book by a guy called Murakami, which is what I talk about when I talk about running. And he's quite a private writer and manages to capture, I think, some of the most sort of genuine awareness to thoughts and feelings that runners experience on their adventures. So it was sort of some humbled stories of the places he'd run and the runners he'd encountered along the way that I found quite inspiring, and it sort of helped me to consider my own running and what other challenging opportunities I could think of. And I tend to think sort of the big problem we have when we're at race day is we tend to go there with a mission to complete. Our mindset is naturally focused on the race, and we don't always necessarily notice that we are often surrounded by some of the most interesting people and sights of the modern world. So I kind of thought about this and thought about this book, and I thought, right, hang on a minute, I'm going to have a theme. And the theme just came about as running through the alphabet. And it was a really quite exciting way to embrace a bit of challenge and achievement, as well as traveling, which is something that I absolutely love. I think it was important for it to not be a tick list. It's not going to be a tick list of the most amazing extreme places to go to. It's like some sort of bucket list. And it had to be achievable financially and be smart. I'm not really one for kudos. I love that sort of flow state of being absorbed in an activity so much that you tend to lose track of time. So it was a way for me to research places, be inspired by places, and something that was aligned with the race medal having that appropriate letter of the alphabet. So that was the
Yeah.
ultimate goal.
Okay, so it's providing a bit of structure really than rather than kind of guiding you into certain races, really. It's just a little structure for you.
Yeah, I think sometimes we need that little motivational cue, don't we? And
Yeah.
people run for all sorts of reasons. And for me, it was having a theme helps you then to focus when you're doing your research. And does it fall within your theme? You can push those boundaries when you need to. Maybe there's a particular race event that is not necessarily about the country or the county. It could be a charity event. It could be more of a challenging event that you didn't consider at the outset, but it fits because it's got the appropriate letter of the alphabet. So it was just a bit of a strategic way of thinking how to make a race more complicated, I suppose.
Yes, yeah, slightly more challenging than normal to find something, I guess. Let's just go back to what you were saying. I love those words you use, like flow state of
Yeah.
running. And I can sense that you are kind of somebody that's very inspired by being outside, by the act of running itself. Just tell us a little bit more about that.
What's this about being outside?
Yeah, and about the feeling that running inspires in you.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because I think once we take on a hobby or a sporting event or something that we engage in, and we engage in it naturally, and we appear to just lose ourselves in the moment. I think it's really, I mean, we do get a lot out of it. I don't think we always necessarily realise it until we can reflect afterwards and think, oh, I really enjoyed that. And that's part of that flow state, isn't it? You're so absorbed in something that you don't quite know what the time is right that moment, and
Yeah.
you're quite happy to just be left alone and focus on that moment. And I find running does that, whether or not you're going out and you're doing your sprint sessions that you need to do, or you're just, wandering down a different pathway that perhaps you didn't know was there while you're on holiday. or if you're away on business and you've packed your trainers, you think, right, I'm going to go for a quick run. It's your time, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I think that's just it's quite important that people are able to embrace that, I think.
Yeah, that's so important. It's not all about the times, is it, and the distance. It's a lot about how it makes us feel.
Although, funny you should say that, because I think some days, I mean, we all, some days we have really good runs and we think, wow, I was on
Yeah.
form today. And other days, you did a run, maybe you were too busy and you just squeezed it in, or you just today wasn't your day. And we all have those days, but I think the ultimate is the freedom of being able to go out there and engage in something that you enjoy doing, and why not?
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about starting your challenge then. I'm guessing you started with the letter A. Are you doing them alphabetically?
I am, yeah. There
Mm.
was one actually that I switched around only because it happened to the race event started before the other one. So, but yes, I'm going through them in alphabetical order. That's the right way of describing it.
Yeah,
So yeah, the first one was in Athens, which is the ultimate birthplace of running,
yeah,
well known for the soldier Phidippides, who ran from the battlefield in marathons to Athens to alert the Athenians that they'd won. So I found the research in putting that into place quite amazing, because these Greek military runners, they were equivalent to our ultra runners of today. They'd be
yeah,
out there in the early dawn running in really low light, gathering their troops and intelligence, and they were like the main messengers. They didn't do it for fun. They that was their thing. And although back in the day, their total mileage would have been way over 200 miles, in a day. But the final jaunt, as we well know the story, was 26.2 miles, hence the mileage we know today as a marathon. So I felt that Athens had to be the first place to kick it off, really. And it was a really inspiring place to start the challenge. I started it in Easter 2021, I believe. Yeah,
yeah,
2021. The weather was pretty unsettled. And it was mainly a road race. So although there were views of the ancient buildings such as the Acropolis and the famous Olympic Stadium, it was mainly coastal. And it's the place where Nike takes its name, as this winged goddess of victory. So the support from the crowd was really amazing. They're very passionate about running and racing at any level. So it was really special to be part of that. I absolutely loved it. And it was a really good way of kickstarting the challenge, I felt.
yeah. Fantastic. So did you incorporate this with a bit of time before and after there, or was it a bit of a holiday for you as well, or was it just going and doing the race?
Yeah, what I tried to do is once I've found the destination, I try to make it sort of usually about a 5-day trip. So you've got, a day to arrive and settle, and then I will have already pre-planned having a hotel or accommodation that is near the finish line, so that after your legs are pretty tired, you haven't got to worry too much about getting back to wherever you're staying, and then have a couple of days to see the sights, engage with the locals, sort of take in the culture, rather than it just becomes some big tick list of how many can I fit in a year. It was about really understanding a little bit about the area that you've gone to visit.
Yeah, yeah. So did you do Athens alone? Did you have somebody with you to race?
I'm doing all the races with my daughter, so we're running these together. I say together, she's a little bit younger than me, so I'm at least 20 years ahead of her in age. So we start together, but we don't finish together. She started at university, Cora. This is she started running university and represented sort of the athletics society when she was there, and then when she graduated in 2021, I believe. She continued her own running goals. So we didn't really start out running together at all, but been very fortunate to have been able to have taken her to many places around the world since she was little. So it was one of those things, you give young people the opportunity to travel and develop an interest in adventure and sort of different cultures. And it was almost, we've got a very unique friendship as a result. And it means that sort of the time we spend together normally includes going somewhere that results in some interesting stories. So sharing that passion for running was a given, really. Our sort of fitness and healthy living has always been part of who we are. So our conversations do tend to include discussions on running, whether that be running gels, running routes, training plans, shoes. So yeah, it was a bit of a no-brainer really. So we decided, yeah, we do these together, and it's so far it's yeah been a really positive experience, a really nice one to do with your kids, I guess.
Yeah, that's so lovely. I hope that when my daughter gets older, that she'll want to come on a run with me as well. That would be lovely.
How old is your daughter?
She's 10.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Get them
we've got
stuff
a while yet, but hopefully.
Yeah, no, it's really nice. My daughter's 23 now,
Yeah,
and it's you have your own goals and your own sense of accomplishment. When you do go out for a run, but yeah, having that opportunity to be able to plot a running route. We're forever sharing routes from Garmin and Strava, and just sort of offering, or there's a route here, the elevation is this, or should we give it a go? Let's have it as our long run
yeah.
session at the weekend. So yeah, it's really nice.
Oh, so I mean, has running changed your relationship in any way then since you've started running and racing together?
Um, I would say it's added value. I mean, we've always been very close. As I say, we've travelled a lot, and always encourage her to have an appetite for travel and people and kindness and all those things really, that I think it's part of who we are as people. Just enjoying life. Don't take life too seriously.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, she works now. She works hard, but she loves her running. But yeah, when we get a chance to meet back up again after sort of busy day at work, running is the ultimate. Get away from it all. You leave the car behind and everyday stresses of work to enjoying the outside again.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that kind of takes us back to where we were before, doesn't it? With just kind of emptying your mind and getting into that state where it's just you and the road ahead, or the pavement, or the trail. Yeah. So where are you up to at the moment with your challenge then? What letter are you up to?
Well, so far, the last race I completed was Hampton Court Half Marathon.
Yeah.
So that one was my letter H, or our letter H, I should say. So the route for that one was very scenic. It's very beautiful. I know that there's been recent pictures published of Hampton Court, I think only this week, with poppies and um, cornflowers. I believe it's absolutely covered. It's supposed to be really beautiful, but at the time when we ran it, it was very, very wet. I'm not a fan of running in the rain at all.
Right.
I love the heat as we've got it at the moment. Definitely a warm runner. I could run in 30 degrees without a problem. I absolutely love it. But on this particular day in Hampton Court, the last mile was over grass around the edge of a golf course, and there were the occasional golf balls flying, and I did find it a bit daunting, shall we
Yeah.
say. I wondered if a couple of the golfers were having a little bit of a laugh. Um, but it was almost impossible to run. It had rained so much and it was so muddy. So it wasn't my most favourite run, but it was a challenge. And you have to have a challenge, don't you? You overcome it and you reflect on it and you think, right, what skills did I use that day? What techniques did I use, or what strategy did I adopt? And that's how we vibe as runners, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely how we improve, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're up to H. So what other races have you done then as part of your challenge so far? So we've done Athens and Hampton Court. What's been in between?
So the letter B was Bingley in Bradford. So Bingley is known for its five locks canals. So it's
Okay,
it's
so
um,
hilly,
it's a very flat run. It was
is
it was a
it?
combination of a trail and a road.
Yeah.
So it was the canal towpath really, and then some trails, but it was what's referred to as an out and back, which
Okay.
again, the more that you run, the more you appreciate a nice big loop that's got lots of lovely scenery. It was beautiful. The actual locks, these high rise locks, were pretty well tough, I say. And they weren't that hilly, but once you're tired, you suddenly see this huge great hill coming
Yeah.
towards you. You've got to go for it. So that was in Bingley and Bradford. That was really nice. That was a definite something different. C was Copenhagen,
Oh wow.
and that was excuse me. That was I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Copenhagen a lot. I've never experienced a crowd like it. In some ways it was a little bit too much.
Was it?
Yeah, the constant hum of cheering and shouting kept the adrenaline pumping without a doubt. They are very, very much behind their runners, because it's
Yeah.
such a flat place. It was fast and flat. I did get a PB. I think probably I focused too much on the PB because I knew it was an
Yeah.
opportunity. So I went around that one in 2:06, which is not bad for somebody in the 40s and 50s bracket. So yeah, it was a good race. It was very colourful, as sort of all the sort of cliche photos of Copenhagen and the city buildings and the colours and the vibrancy. It was very much like that. It was a very beautiful place. Wasn't as cosmopolitan as I perhaps would have liked it to have been.
Yeah.
But it was nice. It was very beautiful. That was a really good letter C. So yeah, that was a nice one to have experienced.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go through all the
Yeah.
other ones?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Tell us what else you've been up
Good
to.
job, we've only got to age, isn't it? So D was Derby. So I went to Derby for that one. Again, I was very mindful for this not to be some huge tick list to say, look at all these amazing places around the
Yeah.
world I've travelled. So Derby was for the letter D, and that was really pretty actually. Derby was along the river, and again the scenery was really beautiful, and it was one huge loop, which was really nice. The roads were closed. So that again really welcomes runners, I think, when you feel that this road closure's been implemented and you've got.
Yeah. Yeah. That does make for an easier race, really, doesn't it? When you're not having to navigate traffic. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, as well, is you can really see the investment that's been put in by the marshals and the running clubs. Even the local people, have come out their houses and they've got their little tables outside with drinks on, and it's a real sense of community. And I think the amount of people who are running for charities and supporting causes is phenomenal. And Derby seemed to be that sort of place where it was all about community spirit. So that was really, really good. I
Yeah. Oh,
enjoyed
that's
it.
lovely.
The letter E was the Eden Project. That was quite a challenge. That was quite a hilly run. And that ended inside the compound of the Eden Project itself, where those huge, great pods are. So
Wow. Fantastic.
yeah, that was a combination of a bit of a rainy day and a windy day. So you got all the elements down on the edge of the Cornish Cornwall there, and yeah, that was quite a challenge, but beautiful scenery, beautiful as it's well known for. But yeah, definitely a hilly one, and the elevation wasn't kind, I would say, on that day. Um, but you do your research, you think, right, okay, let's check out the elevation on this one. And because I'm surrounded very much with the Brecon Beacons and the Malvern Hills
Yeah.
near home, you know that you're always going to have that opportunity to do some hill training, some hill work. But the Eden Project was definitely testing the boundaries of, have I done enough, sort of thing.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, but like you said earlier, you've got to challenge yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right. If every race is just going to be a flat race, then you're going to just fall foul of just, let's see how fast I can go. To me, it was more about the preparation of the first, say, half an hour into a race. Sometimes can take us a good 2-3 miles to relax in a race. I find, the
Yeah.
first,
Yeah.
it's,
Find the same as you. Yeah. It takes a while, doesn't it, just to get into it?
yeah, I mean, I find that sometimes the first mile, it's that make or break feeling, isn't it? In the first mile, you're running, you sort of think, oh, do my shoes tight enough? Do I need to loosen the laces? Do I need to go to the loo again? You can't help but evaluate all those little niggles, and it's not until you've done a couple of miles you think, right, I'm settled now. Now I'm enjoying it. Now I can look at the scenery, and you check your time on your watch, and yeah, I haven't set off too fast. I'm pacing myself well, and you've got enough fluids, or you thought about what gels you perhaps got with you and when you're going to take them. So yeah, it's all part of the challenge. Excuse me. So yeah, where have I got to so far? So
G is next. No, F. Sorry.
F was
Don't know where.
Farnborough. F was Farnborough, around the history of the Farnborough airport and the sort of surrounding area of that, really. So that was just something completely different to
Yeah,
do.
that sounds very different, actually.
Yeah, so that one that's in northeast Hampshire. So that was just something that I wanted to just cover really, about, thinking of something different. It's known for its international air show, and hundreds of people that visit there every year for the exhibits for the air show. So I thought, um, it's long-standing sort of aviation links. I thought that would be something really different, and the medal was, um, aligned with that sort of theme, really, which was really nice.
Yeah. And then that leaves us with G, doesn't it?
Yeah, G. Now G was something completely different that I'd never done before, which was, um, it was the Galazzo Mountain, and the Galazzo Legend it's called, and it's in Mallorca. So it's a very beautiful place, is Galazzo, and it is a trail run, to say the least, but the elevation is pretty steep. So it's an area called Calvia in Mallorca, so it's part of the Balearic Islands, and it's known for being quite a hiking trail. It's very much a scenic spot. It's got a lot of panoramic views of the Mediterranean coast, very beautiful. And it starts in this tiny little village, where people can then, go off on their different various hiking routes. But it was really, really steep. And the first half a mile, I would say, was on gravel. So it was definitely trail shoes. It was on gravel, and then these little tiny stones that you were running across started to become, you know, bigger rocks, almost like the size of tomatoes, and then they got more sort of size of boulders, and then you found that you're actually almost on your hands and knees now, clambering up the side of a
Yeah.
mountain. Um, at which point the crowds start to disperse. You're no longer just running with the few people who you're in the race pen with to start with. You've really separated now, so you're on your own, and
Yeah.
you're following these markers, the sort of a bit of red and white plastic tape, just tied to a bit of foliage, and that's the only thing you've got to really give you an idea as to where the route is taking you. And I found that quite daunting because, you can't just follow the person in front and think, oh yeah, I'll follow them. They look like they know where they're going. Um, you if you get it wrong, you are really off piste on a very, dangerous ledge, really. So it was an interesting race,
Yeah.
um, but I found it really, really hard. It was over 1,000 meters above sea level, so it was quite high. It was a long way up,
Yeah.
um, but it was exhausting. It was
How
exhausting.
was the descent? If it was steep going up, how was it coming back down?
Well, the descent, it's hard to say whether or not the descent was easier than the climb, but going on the same basis, there was nowhere to put your foot flat. So every time you put your foot on something, it rolled forward because it was loose rocks. And I didn't manage to fall, which was good for me. I did. I cut my hand at one point, on a rock, only a little cut, but it was bleeding quite a lot because of naturally sweating and things. And at one point, I was literally hoping that I'd be spotted and be pulled out of the race. Someone would feel sorry for me and pull me out of the race, but no such luck. But the coming down was really, it was daunting. I was
Yeah.
more concerned about not losing my footing and slipping. Um, but the scenery was beautiful. It was, it's not one of the highest mountains in Mallorca, but it was absolutely beautiful, really, really nice, and a bit of a scramble, I say, is probably the
Yeah.
best way of describing it.
Oh, that sounds really exciting though. So is trail is are you normally a road runner? Is trail not your natural environment for running?
It was funny you should say, because where I'm based, I've got, as I say, the Brecon Beacons and
Yeah.
the Malvern Hills, the Wye Valley, a lot of beautiful trails within very close proximity. And I think the downside of that is you cannot ever find anywhere flat. So you've got to, get over it, and you've got to run up hills. So I do like the peace and quiet and that sort of solitary feeling of running on the trails. But equally, when you sort of see, friends that have run along the beach, or a nice flat sort of country lane. I think, oh yeah, I fancy that. So
Yeah.
it's nice to have that combination. I think we're very lucky if you're very lucky if you've got that. The idea of living in a city somewhere and you've only got sort of a park, a centre park somewhere that you sort of flock to and you loop it sort of 10 times. I think I'd find that quite tough. So road running, especially when there's lots of traffic and people don't always want to get out of the way, unfortunately. So, the peace and quiet of the trails is really nice to have that as an alternative.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like you've got the best of both worlds there, Andrea.
Yeah, I think I have actually. I'm very very humbled by it, shall we
Yeah.
say?
Yeah. So what would you say has been your favourite moment so far then of the challenge?
Um, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I think it's a difficult to measure. I think sometimes when we measure success sort of within ourselves, it can simply be just sort of achieving satisfaction, can't it? As often as we can. So the fact that we've gone out and we've been able to achieve what we set out to do, I think sometimes that's as much as we need, isn't it? Or is it about the fact that we got a PB? So I don't. I loved Galazzo. I mean, as much as I hated it at the time, I loved Galazzo because it was just something so different. But then I really loved Copenhagen because it was so flat, and then you can put your sort of fast, flat sort of methods in place. Think, right, I'm going to go for it. So I think the fact that we can just achieve and look back and reflect and say, yeah, I did a really good race there. I put a lot of effort into that, not only the training but the foods and whatever program you put into place, even if that's been sort of an hour a day, sort of every other day. It's looking back and knowing that that actually worked for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important, isn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah. And I guess success, like you say, it means different things on different days as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like when it's a really, really wet day, like it was for the Hampton Court half marathon. You plan ahead what you're going to wear, and you've got to feel warm, but you don't want to overheat. Have you got the right shoes on? You've gone for the right, running shoes, because it was going to be a bit of a combination of trails and road. So it's that success feeling. I think that knowing that whatever research you've made into making it the best possible race you can for that day, there was a success. And if it wasn't, why not? And what do I need to do next time to tweak it a little bit?
Yeah. Well, just while we're on the subject of heat, obviously we are recording this while we are in the UK in the midst of a heat wave. It's unusually warm. You've already said that you enjoy running in the heat. What are your tips for kind of getting through, especially those longer runs in the heat? I find it really difficult personally. I'm very much a winter and rain runner.
Oh, are you? That's
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, you see, that's one of the things I've learned so far about running is that, it's you know what you like and you've got to go with it. Right back to the beginning when you first start running, and people say, "Oh, I'll go nice run in the mornings." I hate running in the morning.
yeah,
The only time I'll run in the morning is I'm going to run in a race event, and you've got to adjust your body a little bit to running or being able to
yeah,
move, at a relatively quick pace first thing in the morning. But um, the heat, I love it. I mean, I ran in Cordoba in Spain. I went to a trip to Seville, and it wasn't a race. It was just a sort of city break, and I stayed in Cordoba, which is just outside of Seville, and it's really well known for its sunflower fields. So it's if you want to see the fields of sunflowers like nothing else is Cordoba. And I went for a run, and it was probably about 41 degrees. Um, and I think you've just got to be prepared to be hot.
yeah,
Sounds crazy. Be prepared to be hot. You're gonna get sweaty. There's no pretty way around it. You've got to be prepared to just be sweaty. And we always say, don't we, about drinking and fueling and drink plenty of water.
yeah,
But that is one of the big tips is to just, I mean, don't be too proud to carry water. I
yeah,
always run with water. Always. Even in the rain, I run with water because, I don't know, you probably don't need to. Some runners will probably go, nah, you don't need that. But running in the heat, take water. Remember your sort of your salts,
yeah,
what your body needs. It's not, it's like feeding a plant in a house plant, isn't it? You don't just give it water, you need
yeah,
food, don't you?
yeah,
So it's making sure you've got a strategy in place for keeping yourself well hydrated.
yeah. I mean, do you find your pace slows down a little bit on hot runs as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to expect that, haven't you? It's a bit
Yeah.
like when we spoke earlier about running at altitude.
Yeah.
You've got to expect that, your body's doesn't need warming up as such. Not like in a, like you when you're running in the colder climates, you probably feel that you're moving quite quick because you want to warm yourself up a bit, and your heart's working differently, and your muscles take longer to warm up. So yeah, when it's already hot outside, you've got to almost allow yourself to do the complete opposite and slow down. But I tend to try and pick a route that I know is going to have some shade as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, that's
Um,
important too.
yeah, and I think again, one of the things that we don't tend to do when we become runners in quotes is it's okay to stop.
Yeah.
If it's hot and you're not used to running in the heat, or it's not your best time for running, it's okay to stop. It's okay to stop, take a breather, and then when you're ready, off you go again. And just adjust your expectations.
Yeah. Yeah, that's key, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, great. So, what have you got planned next on the challenge? What's coming up next for you?
Well, my next challenge is, as a bit of a motorbike enthusiast, the TT, which is known for the Tourist Trophy in the Isle of Man, um, is known for being one of the most sort of dangerous and thrill-seeking race events in the motorbike world. So
Yeah.
I thought that the Isle of Man, for the half marathon route there, would be an ideal choice, especially as some of the route that we will cross will cover some of the roads of these sort of fast super bikes. So
Oh, wow.
if you like your bikes, then it's a quirky
Yeah.
story to have. So yes, that's what I thought I would do
Oh,
for
fantastic. So, when's that happening?
that. Was in August,
Yeah.
so missed out on the TT, which was
That's
the
just happened, hasn't
last
it?
week.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't think I would have been very popular if I was out having a run at the same time these bikes were speeding past. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's in August. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Oh, fantastic. Have you been to the Isle of Man before?
No, never,
No.
never.
Oh, it's beautiful. You'll love it. I did a holiday there back, oh, it must be 10 years ago now, but it's beautiful. You'll love it.
I've heard only positive things, so
Yeah.
it seemed like an ideal choice, really. And it's not too far, and it's always I think it's always nice when you can look to see where the your local airport and the airlines that you might use regularly, where they go to, what are their destinations, and
Yeah.
that always helps with a bit of planning. And Isle of Man happened to be one on the list for me, so I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. And then with
Yeah.
the sort of association with motorbikes, I thought, oh yeah, I'll give that one a go.
Yeah. So are you taking one letter at a time, Andrew, in planning, or are you seeing how this evolves, or have you got some ideas in your head of what else you want to do?
Haven't planned anything after um, and I'm a bit stuck on Jay at the moment. Actually, my daughter and I we had this conversation about Jay because we were looking at Jordan,
Oh,
and we were also looking at a couple of places in Spain. Um, but it really does depend on whether or not I don't know what time of the year the race events come up.
yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's very much a case of, and like I said earlier as well, it's got to be the race medal has got to have that letter in it.
Yes.
So
Okay. Yeah. So that's key. Yeah.
yeah, so it could be a race event that's for a particular um, place, a destination rather than a country.
Yeah.
Then yeah, so I think we will definitely push further afield when it comes to further letters along the alphabet. But like I say, it wasn't intended to be this sort of amazing wish list of places around the world. It's got to be cost effective, but at the same time, if there's an opportunity to go to some of these faraway places, then and it works, then yeah, I'm always up for adventure.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Oh, well, you'll have to keep us posted with where you end up next then after the Isle of Man. Yeah. Let
Yeah,
us know.
definitely.
So let's finish with just, what do you feel you've learned so far doing this challenge? Has it taught you anything specific, do you think?
Um, Yeah, I mean, running is such a personal thing, isn't it? And I think if it doesn't sound too cliche, I think that we become slightly more complete, confident, maybe wiser version of ourselves. After we've embraced some new adventure. After we've gone for our run. It is quite personal. It may be for some they've just run around the block and they weren't able to do that before. They've done it now for the first time ever without stopping, or it's the furthest they've ever been able to run, and it makes us more confident, doesn't it? And
It
we
does.
can then sort of reflect and see, wow, I've achieved something, and is quite a personal thing. So I think for me, fueling is a big thing, and we learn then what worked and what didn't. We always hear about people talking about carb loading, but it's not just carbs, is it? It's the lead up to it. People have got different dietary requirements, that they can't always necessarily eat certain foods, and that's got to be captured as well. I've learned what sports brands are expensive, but why they're expensive, and then when you
Okay.
start wearing those particular brands, you realize and appreciate the investment and think, right, yeah, that's why I wear that brand, because it's comfortable, the material's soft. When you're wearing it for 2 hours at a time, 2-3 hours at a time, it wears well, but it also absorbs the moisture. And I think, as we mentioned before, learn whether or not you're a morning runner or you're an evening runner, and
Yeah.
how you benefit the most from putting your training into place, because you are running at the right time of day that works for you. I think one of the biggest things for me that I've taken from running so far, since about 2016 to now, is stretching. It's that core strength, still going to the gym. What might feel like a day that you're not out there on the ground running, is the opportunity to stretch and reduce injury. And it's definitely my go-to. Stretching is so underrated. And
Yeah.
I think there's a book by a guy called Matthew Walker, really worth a read, and it's called Why We Sleep, and it's very much a comprehensive and quite powerful account, really, of the science behind why we sleep, and it's all about that sort of the foundation to our physical and our mental strength. And I found, for me, other than just the stretching and the working on looking after your core strength, and I'm not very good at keeping still for very long.
No.
Like to keep moving, but having learned a bit about stretching and the basics, I do value my sleep now more than ever. And I think
Yeah.
that need to relax, we don't tend to do as a species anymore. It's always on the go. And I think it's when you learn about taking things a little bit slower pace, you realize you're investing a lot more into the times when you are actually running. So I think that's the biggest thing I've learned so far from it, is the rest and the stretching is really quite an investment.
Yeah, absolutely. We often neglect that rest as runners, don't we? We think that if we're out training, we need to be running, but sleep and rest is a part of that, isn't it? It is
Mm.
training.
Definitely. I think
Yeah.
the thing is you tend to, when you're not running, whether or not you're catching up with a friend's run, or you're looking on Strava or another app, or Garmin, and you can see that a friend's gone and done a run, or they've done 10 miles today. I only did 3. And it's that feeling of, oh, I'm going to go out and do some more.
Yeah.
And it's that need to just stop, slow down, be pleased with what you've achieved. You're running for yourself. You're not running for anyone else. And, whatever you're investing in yourself is actually going to be of benefit to you and add value the next time you put your trainers on and go outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, that's all very wise, sensible advice. Thank you for that. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been fascinating chatting to you.
Thank you
Could
for having me, Michelle. Nice to speak to you.
Yeah, could you tell our listeners where they can follow you? Have you got a social media account where they can follow you if they want to find out a little bit more about your challenge?
Yes, I'm on Instagram as Silver Cloud Adventures, so I can be found there. And I'm also on Strava as Andrea D, so I can be found there. So those are the two sort of main locations where my running routes and achievements will be posted.
Oh, fantastic. Well, all the very best with the rest of your challenge and enjoy it. And do keep us posted with how you're getting on.
I certainly will. Thanks very much for taking the time to speak to me.
Thank you.